Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So today we have this board exchange, and it's the first board exchange within this bigger program, Board Oversight of Sustainability for Value Creation. The first three exchanges are open, so this one is also open. We have a lot of participants that are not in the program. But just to put this into a context, if you can move to the next slide, Liselotte. And today we are very happy to have Andreas. He's a professor at the Copenhagen Business School, also an associate dean and with a background in the UN Global Compact. And it's the first time that Andreas is with us. He just joined our advisory board, so academic advisory board. So thank you so much. And then we also have Peter Alström that has been with us in a few other events, also part of the board of Boards Impact Forum, the Strategic Advisory Board. He's the owner and board member of Alström Capital company, so based in Finland. And then you have our dear Liselotte. She's the chair from Boards Impact Forum, also Ned and me myself. I will also be taking a bit the role of the chat moderator. So if you want to write something in the chat, please go ahead. If you can change the next slide, thank you. So for the agenda today, we are going to start with some board role status and examples of dilemmas by Liselotte. We are going to talk about the board's role, competences, structure, and for sustainability with Andreas. Assessment and stewardship for sustainability with Peter Alström. So we have a little bit first of food for thought introduction, and then we go into breakout rooms where we try to discuss and digest these topics. We then come together and share our insights in a panel, and we talk about what's coming next. If you share the next slide. So we would ask everyone to be muted. The chat box is open, so please, go ahead and put your questions, thoughts, ideas. If you want to share reports, etc., just put it there. Everything that is related to the topic, of course. And we really want everyone to keep their name identified, so we know who is who when we're making comments and when we go to the breakout rooms. We have a quite balanced attendance today, so 57% from the Nordic and 43% from the rest of the world. 13 countries are here today. If you can share the next slide. And we just wanted to say a few words about Boards Impact Forum, who we are and why we're doing this. So the Climate Governance Initiative from the World Impact Forum mobilizes board directors in many different chapters across the world, and we are the Nordic chapter. So we have partnerships with the major Nordic board networks in 5 countries, and you can see there by the logos who are our network partners at the moment. If you can share the next slide. And now we start with Liselotte and your presentation. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. And I think it would be on point if you'd like to share your name and where you're calling in from today in the chat, so we get a bit acquainted with each other. That would be very nice. We just wanted to share that most of the things that we run will be aligned with the governance principles that World Economic Forum developed and shared, with the balance that in Nordics we cater for the broader sustainability agenda, not just the climate, but climate is of course a very important part. We group them into 4 areas, and the 4 areas will then be related to the principles. So first we have the board role, and in that we include the accountability, the knowledge, the competence on the board, and the board structure. And that is actually the focus area we have for today. So that's what we're going to talk about today, the board's role. Then we are looking into the risk and strategy impact, the objectives all around the reporting and motivation, and then we're going into the stakeholder exchange and collaboration. And that is how we organize both these events that we have. We usually just share with you where we think it links in. And we also organize a lot of our content around that. And in fact, many of you are taking the program, or most of you are taking the program. And this is how we also organize the program. So we just wanted to start out with, instead of just telling everybody what we think you should try to do, we know that one of the biggest challenges for boards are that it's conflicting dilemmas that you're trying to reconcile. So we'll just show you here along the lines of these three areas. So on the accountability, this survey is something that we have been doing for quite a long time at Boards Impact Forum. And here you can see that in terms of the accountability, if you feel that your board has a good understanding, for instance, of ESG and climate, you would see that slightly more than maybe 60% think they have that, but actually 40% don't think they have that. And in a similar way, if you really put to the point, do you think that you will make your boards and your company known for actually have been driving this? It drops further. The two most important dilemmas here that boards are trying to reconcile is the balancing of the short-term financial pressures with the long-term business and sustainability goals. So to actually get a bit focus and diversion of resources and actions and strategies towards the long term. The other thing that is very particular for Europe right now is that we have a lot of legislation coming within the sustainability area. And that, unfortunately, is the good thing is that it creates clarity and transparency. The bad things is that we can already see that a lot of boards becomes more compliance oriented than strategic. So they put their prime effort into just reporting where they are and what they have, rather than thinking through where's the most important strategic drivers, which is also one of the reasons Peter will talk to us shortly here, which is really interesting around how they work with it in their companies. So that's around the role. If we go to the knowledge and competence, we like to ask not just the people who answer the surveys, because they are usually a bit ahead of the rest. So we're asking them, how do you feel that the rest of the board understands the topic? And here you can see that it's actually a bit lower. And also whether you have actually done a formal assessment of your board. And here you can also see that there's still rooms for improvement. The dilemmas here is one of, should it be us in the boards knowing this, or should we ask more from the management team? That is a discussion going on. It's very hard to oversee something you don't understand yourself, so it still will require knowledge at the board level. And then the other area, which is why we're so grateful that you are here, that is actually the investment and time for keep doing competence development. So a lot of boards have attained their board position because things they've done and things that they know very well. Increasingly, boards needs to take more education and training, and for large boards, the challenge is if you sit on a number of them, most people think that the training means 1 hour information about the topic. That is not training. You can't really get yourself knowledgeable about that. So that's another dilemma for boards. And in the third area, it's around how do you structure your approach. And that is around still, have you looked through if any of the processes will change, and have you looked through whether you need to actually put a bit of what kind of structure you need to have in the different committees, and have you updated your board charters and committee charters to reflect who does what. So aligning that board structure consciously and actually having a debate about how that will work is another dilemma. So I think it's time to head over to our fantastic opportunity to listen to Professor Andreas Rasche, who is one of the few professors here in the Nordic that is really focused and specialized on both boards and sustainability. And we're delighted to have you. You're also the Associate Dean for Copenhagen Business School. And we're delighted to say that you're a member of our academic advisory board. So Andreas, over to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Liselotte. Good morning, everybody. Welcome on this rather cold day, also here in Copenhagen, by the way, although absolutely not comparable to Helsinki and Stockholm, but of course related to climate change. And I'm happy to share later because, you know, on these very cold days, you often have people asking, so where's the global warming, right? I'm happy to share later in the chat some studies actually that show even these cold spells, they are related to the changing climate. Well, my short intervention here is called Sustainability in the Boardroom. As Liselotte indicated, I'm researching this kind of topic. Next slide, please. Where I'm also right now kind of doing research directly at this intersection of boards and sustainability. My background is more broadly in sustainability, ESG related topics. So I'm based at Copenhagen Business School, native German, but joined from the UK. And I've also been with Stockholm School of Economics for a couple of years as a visiting appointment. So what I will show you today is basically research that is ongoing. It comes out of my new book, which hopefully will be well finished at the end of the year. But as you know, it's quite a bit of work to write such books, and also quite a bit of reflection work. So let's start. Next slide, please. I think probably the one key question we need to ask ourselves is where the board stands right now, and with regard to sustainability. And I think that boards matter for sustainability is not contested by anyone. I would say it is important to oversee, particularly the risk side of ESG. You engage with investors on the board, so this is an important link also for sustainability. But what we see, and what also various surveys kind of show, is that you have very high interest and also very high awareness on the board level. But what is lacking right now is that this integration of sustainability into strategy. So there is the survey here, 2022, 70% of directors say they're only moderately or not at all effective at integrating ESG into the strategy. So in that sense, they are aware, right? They realize what it is. They are not, and they also do not have to be subject matter experts. You don't need to be an expert on biodiversity, but they struggle to really integrate into the strategy, into the strategic discussions, into the growth and risk discussions in particular. Next slide, please. So against this background, we also need to see, and this is a little bit what just alluded to, that regulations are changing very swiftly here in Europe. And last year in particular, we've seen a new wave of sustainability regulations coming out. And actually quite a bit of these have explicit tasks for boards. just shortly before Christmas, the CSDDD, the so-called Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, was finished by the European Union. So the three parties, the Council, the Parliament, and also the Commission, they finished their negotiations. And in the final version, you don't have a direct duty of care anymore, which was there in the further proposals, but you still have a need to link variable remuneration of company directors with the climate plans for companies with over 1,000 employees. So you have actually direct obligations on the board with regard to oversight of climate plans, and also this is coupled to remuneration. Within the ESRS, so the new European reporting standards, you have a variety of disclosure items, mandatory disclosure items, by the way, on expertise of directors, which throws up this learning discussion, but also regarding incentive schemes, and also regarding who is actually responsible for sustainability oversight. These are more narrative disclosures, but nevertheless, transparency is boosted up, of course. And then you have the CSRD, which is the new reporting directive. So the ESRS, they operate under the CSRD. I'm sure most of you know, I'm just saying it for those of you who might not be so familiar with this. And they actually also define new tasks for the audit committees directly. So in a sense, you need to safeguard the integrity of sustainability reporting and the monitoring of the mandatory assurance that is about to come. All of this shows the landscape for boards and sustainability here in Europe is changing significantly. The big risk here is that we over-implement and that we move too much towards compliance and kind of lose sight of the strategic direction. And I come back to this in just a moment. Next slide, please. So from my own research and my own conversations with board members here in Denmark, but also in other countries, I've identified three key barriers, I think, that quite a lot of boards are struggling with when it comes to sustainability. The first barrier, I would say, is a structural barrier, because a lot of boards struggle with how exactly should we discuss sustainability. And I put this on the slide here, there are different options, basically. You can either have the entire board discuss it, you can form a committee around it, you can have one person, the kind of champion approach, or you simply extend an existing committee. For instance, some companies have extended their risk management committee with regard to sustainability oversight. There is no right and wrong here. I know that this is a kind of a typical business school answer, but it really depends. And probably we cannot say, this is the best approach that every company should adopt. I think at the end of the day, from my conversations with directors, a lot depends on the level of the existing knowledge. So for instance, the board oversight that the entire board discusses, ESG, is not a good approach if you have severe knowledge gaps. So if you have only one or two people who actually hold the knowledge on sustainability. It has quite a bit to do with the maturity of the sustainability discussions in the firm. How long have these discussions been around? How well established are reporting schemes? How granular is the data? And then it also has quite a bit to do with the complexity of the issues. Let's face it, sustainability is a broad field, ranging from things like biodiversity to human rights to anti-corruption. So the issues that companies face, the material issues, differ significantly from sector to sector and also from company to company within a sector. And a lot depends also on the complexity of the portfolio of issues that a company needs to address. Empirically speaking, we see quite a bit of companies in the US opting for the formal committee approach, particularly the bigger ones. They have done this. Most companies actually enter with the board oversight. So the entire board discusses it. And I think this is then what is creating the struggles. Next slide, please. What matters when running a board committee for sustainability? And I just put down some things here. I will not discuss them all. I think those companies that really define a committee, they need to be sure, that the committee is well embedded within the board, that the committee really has strong links, particularly to finance committees, in order to clarify budgetary issues, and also the role within the full board needs to be clarified. It is, after all, a custodian of the long-term view. So sustainability committees can act as a custodian of this long-term view. And we all know this, sustainability is all about this long-term thinking. So if you have a sustainability committee, I think the good thing is this committee can always pull back the board and kind of say, what are the long-term consequences here? What are the long-term implications of our decisions with regard to sustainability issues? Next slide, please. However, and this is the second barrier that I think exists, the structure itself is usually not that important. What matters actually more, at least this is what the people I'm talking to tell me, is the mindset with which the board approaches this entire discussion. And here you can have very different mindsets depending on also, first of all, how the board identifies itself. Is the board more of a monitor? So this would be the kind of the classic principal agent type of understanding, right? The board controls, audits, monitors, or is the board more of a steward, collaborating with senior management? And then the other dimension is, does the board understand sustainability as risk or as really long-term value creation? Of course, these kind of metrics, they always come with simplifications, and the world isn't as simple as these four boxes here. So the truth probably is somewhere in the middle. But what we see as a tendency, and coming back to what Lieselotte said in the beginning, is that, of course, quite a number of boards adopt the compliance and risks mindset. And I would say in Europe, we see this being strengthened even through the regulations that are coming in right now, that boards really move towards the compliance discussion and sustainability becomes more or less a compliance exercise. And in a sense, this is a pity, because you lose sight of the value and valuation aspects, and maybe we can discuss this later. Next slide, please. And then the third big barrier from my perspective, of course, board knowledge. So I think you don't necessarily need to be an expert on biodiversity. But what you need to do is you need to be able to evaluate whether a firm's ESG strategy is meeting industry standards and best practices. So I think in that sense, what we often do, I think, in these discussions around board competencies is we overvalue particular factual knowledge and we undervalue skills, how to actually deal with these knowledge. So in a sense, what is needed is that, of course, you need an overview of the regulatory environment. You need to be able to judge whether the information you get from, for instance, the VP sustainability, whether this information is sufficient, whether the materiality analysis has been performed in a correct way. So I think these are the kind of competencies that I see as being quite vital, rather than being a technical expert, for instance, on water stewardship. Because for this, what I see is actually that quite a number of boards also get outside expertise on board. Last slide, please. And all of this, of course, we need to evaluate in the context in which boards operate. And here I show you. Okay, somebody, please mute yourself. I think I hear a sadness. Yes, so this is the kind of the second part to the competence barrier. And I would say in the sustainability context, learning is key, because solutions are rarely 100%. This is not, we are not in an area here like physics or something where you really have always factual solutions. So in this kind of context, learning is key. And what research also shows us is that people at the top of the organizations, they tend to be overconfident. And this is not just true for boards, this is also true for CEOs. And we have seen quite a bit of research actually on this. And this can be quite dangerous actually in this context here. Overconfidence can be dangerous because it might give the illusion of progress where actually there is little progress. On the right-hand side here, I put the famous, it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. So that confidence and competence are not always matched quite correctly together. So, you know, on the upper left-hand side, you see the armchair quarterback. This would be the dad on the side of the football field who kind of has a lot of comments to make. And then you have the imposters, of course, on the other side. Now, last slide, please. There is, of course, no easy solution, but I'm always saying it's not easy being green. This is true for boards. This is true for all others as well. Kermit the Frog already knew it because he termed that famous phrase. With this being said, I hand it back to Liselotte. Thanks for listening, and I'm looking forward to discussing with you.
Thank you so much, Andreas, and thank you for those timely pointers, both to the actual fact, but also to our responsibility to be proactive as boards. So by that, I invite Peter to join us. And my first question to Peter is: do you want to share the slides, or do you want to share them?
Let's see if I can do it. Hang on.
Okay. There you go.
Okay, it says you cannot start screen share while the other party is sharing.
So there is no other parties. Try it again and see if it was just a bit of a delay.
What do you see now?
Now we see you. Perfect. Yep.
Very good. Let's see if I still. Yep. Okie dokie. Well, so thank you all for this possibility to give this speech, and just a short insight once again about me. So I'm a 5th generation family member from the Alstom family. I'm a civil engineer from profession, and I also took a course at INSEAD, especially for board work, and on a daily basis, I'm the CEO of one of our family companies, taking care of our real estate and forest assets. And then I do have some board positions as a NED in 3 private companies and in 2 NGOs. And what is important is that as a family company, I would say that we have a face, and we also have a place in society. And I wanted deliberately to take this picture that you see here up on the screen to show that as we are part of the community, we take this very seriously, this sustainability. And also because this is also something that the personnel takes heart. And if we don't drive these kind of themes as sustainability, we will not have these guys working for us. So our average age, I really can't even remember anymore. But trying to get in new fresh blood into the company is, we always start talking about sustainability. So I think it's wonderful to be able to be part in this Boards Impact Forum, because I get a lot of new insights also from here to take on to the company and to our employees. But what also is important is that we have a shared vision within both the owners as well as the company. That is a better world for future generations. And that is a very bold statement. But it's a better world. I mean, we are talking about employees and all stakeholders, and eventually also then the owners will benefit from this. Okay, here you see, let's say, a small roadmap that we put up. This is just a part of the show, but I would like to take a look on a few years just back. And as this is important that we are talking about management and board, and then we talk many times about reporting. And so we started in 21 to have these reviews with the management and trying to put up some sort of a framework and systematic how to get into to get all these matters. And here we also have had help from this UN Global Compact, that there are these principles how to do it. But I think everybody of you knows that it hasn't been really easy to compare. So sometimes you have apple and pears, and or is not the same. And but I think we are slowly coming that the industry, and especially within certain industry, to find a better way. We are doing peer group benchmarking. I will come into that a bit later on. And of course, I think for bigger companies now looking into 2025, this CSRD reporting, that is, I wouldn't say a headache for us, but it's something, again, one new thing to learn. And we have done so that also that it's our audit committee from the board that is responsible for this. And the audit committee is also the ones that are, let's say, more focused on the ESG matters on the board. And in 2024, we are really trying to put in some training, a more in-depth training, both for our staff, but also for our boards. And I think that we sometimes, as Andreas has said, and Lisa Lott talked about it, that really the board needs to be educated. We have within our main board, the average age is, I would say, quite high. We are talking about trying to diversify and have more younger people coming in, but we are still not there. So I think that our boards really need to be educated. Here is just a slide that I wanted to share with you, that as we are an investment company, we mostly buy to keep companies. But there are, of course, situations that we also sell, but in a way of buying also companies, trying in the focus, we are trying, what is the business model? What can we do also when we own it until we maybe also sell it? So we have a systematic way in the screening, doing the due diligence, and then doing the selections, and then especially then eventually when we are monitoring, and that are we on the right track? And I think this is a good way to prepare yourself and talk about this within the organization in a forehand. And I would say we have now, within 2-3 years, we have purchased 3 companies, and they have all had quite a different in a different stage. They have been size-wise between 50 million revenue to 300-400 million euro revenue. Of course, these companies have, and their boards and how they are working is quite different. But I think that we also from our side can then help, especially the smaller ones that maybe don't have everything in place, that with our systematic way of approach, we can help them out. So how we then work, and that especially Ahlström, where I sit, is more a holding company, and we work through the boards and trying to be active owners. And we have the dialogue with the management on a regular basis. We also are owners, main owners in some stock listed companies. So there is the dialogue is there, but we of course have the same information as the rest, but we still have the dialogue on a regular basis. We have focus areas within the ESG. You have these three on climate, resource efficiency, biodiversity. The biodiversity has been there now for a few years, and as we have a forest company, the biodiversity is in the forest many times. That's good. And within the social part, the diversity and inclusion is the new one from there. As a Scandinavian companies, this governance model, I think, is quite clear. I think we have in the Nordics a good governance. We are transparent. Let's say we are honest people. So I think this part is okay. But as we have also the companies we have in many, we have in China, we have South America, almost on all continents. So the governance is not it's not always there. I mean, we know how it is, but we need to have it all the way down into the companies, down on the shop floor. A few words going back to our focus areas. I would just say that I won't go into all of these, but we have targets on most of our things that we are monitoring, but to try to find the best target is not always there, and what is possible. So we are talking also with peer groups and trying to find that what could be really good benchmarks. And this is not, we are not there yet, but we want to find that, and I'm glad if within the group that we work with, and also with you guys, that if anybody wants to collaborate, please raise your hand and let's talk. But the environmental part, I think everybody knows what's all, and I think this is partly easier to do, as well as also on the social part. The employee well-being has been there for a long time, but what we've seen in the last year is also the employee turnover, and depending on where in the world we are, but especially in US, we have seen an extremely high employee turnover. And I think after the COVID, COVID was part reason that people really started to move also after COVID, or is it okay to work from home or not, etc., etc. So we've had in some factories even up to 30% turnover. That is a catastrophe. I think it's very bad. But many times it's not, well, I would say management is part of the problem also. That with very good management, good leaders, I think you should be able to decrease the employee turnover. So talk about it and also address the problems, and hopefully you can then get done with the turnover. On the governance side, I think most of these are quite normal things, but we have something called an ESG management maturity. And I will explain to you about that. And that is something that we are benchmarking our companies within the group. Now you should see a slide with 5 levels. And this is something that we made up ourselves. Of course, maybe not only ourselves. We've had some help about this, but with this, we try to see where we are. And of course, our aim is that all of our companies should be on level 5. I've now put in just a few of the companies. The ones on level 5, the Suominen, it's a stock listed company. whereas Alstom, which is our fiber company, that is privately owned. And I'm of course glad, that's why I could put up the stock listed company as it's on number 5. But then the number level 3, that's 2 of our companies. M&J is a recycling company based in Denmark, and Awesome Real Estate. So that's what I'm looking after. So this is a way that we see we have these key parameters where you, on the different levels. And I would say that at the moment, all of our companies are on level 3 or better, but we have just bought a small company, a 40 million euro company, making harvesting in Finland, Sweden, and in Germany. And it will be interesting to see on which level they will land here. And then we will make the plans going forward. There are, of course, a lot of other ESG activities. And this CSRD, as we talked about, and now a double maturity assessment we have done with the Inclus to see the risks. And this Inclus is an interesting tool to see risks from different sides. And but in general, I think everybody in this group knows what CSRD is and the concept of this double maturity, and trying to see the risk from different sides. And so we are also taking different stakeholders along in this. Okay, let's see if I have something more. Something about the upright model, that could be interesting to also. So the upright model is an outside-in analysis, and it looks at the impact of the products and services, part of the whole value chain. And here I have a scale from minus 100 to 100. And these different procents tells different how our companies are placed on this chart. And what is interesting is also that we have companies that have we think that they should be very high. They make, let's say, non-woven process or products that doesn't seem that bad, but they use very much electricity, they use very much water, and they come on the scale here on the left-hand side. Whereas some other, like M&J recycling companies in the other end, and they have the strongest impact and contribution as they do waste management processes and recycling. So this is, and or we have Alstom that is almost in the middle here. We have we do harvesting in our forest, which create negative impact, but it makes a positive environment impact from the carbon sinks and wood-based materials. So this is really this upright model is, I think it's a good way of benchmarking our companies, at least within the group. And I don't know, could we Lisa, shortly, I would be very interested to know if somebody from this audience is using the upright model.
Right, so we'll ask them to put that into the chat.
Yes, that would
and
be good.
For those who are interested and taking the program, we actually do a lot of pointers to the upright model and share a bit more, so you can also go in and look at either your own company, if you're on a bit larger companies, or look at a number of other companies, it gives, as Peter says, a very good insight into the broader impact and broader value development.
Yeah. So this was more or less what I wanted to say. Thanks very much for your attention, and I think we'll go on with the show. Thank you, Liselott.
Thank you so much, Peter, and we will come back to both you and Andreas after our breakout sessions and have more discussions with both of you. Meanwhile, we think it's time for our participants to now let us know which of these board dilemmas do you think is most challenging for boards or for your board? And let us know which one you think is most challenging, so we'll get a bit of perspective jointly on that topic. It would be very interesting, and thank you so much. We can see that the answers have started to come in. And one of the reasons we are asking this question is, of course, that we will use that also in our discussions going forward. So just 30 more seconds and then we will close the chat. Almost all have voted so far. So I think we'll close it and we share the results. And can you see the results?
Yes.
Very good. So maybe we can actually ask Andreas to comment. What do you see? And does this reflect what you see otherwise in terms of the dilemmas for boards?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reiterates the point I was trying to make earlier about this mindset, right? That boards struggle with kind of moving from the compliance towards the strategy agenda. And of course, this is in a sense natural because the traditional agenda of boards has been monitoring, controlling, auditing. So, and if you now have new regulations, you as a board, the first thing that is on your mind is, of course, I need to gain knowledge on this, and I need to try to make sure that the organization is aligned. So, yeah, I think kind of reiterates the point I was making earlier. But I also find the other dilemmas actually quite interesting. So
yeah.
Also the one between balancing roles and expertise between board and management. I think this is also something that I'm actually writing a section in my book about this because of course the link between the board and senior management is a tricky one. It depends quite a bit on the governance model, the corporate governance model that you're looking at. But in terms of sustainability, I think this is something to keep in mind. Yeah.
Right. And this gives me the opportunity to actually let everybody know that's on the program, that when you do the reflection, you will get a chance to actually evaluate the different dilemmas versus all of the different principles. And Andreas, maybe that would be some input for your book as well, that we can share with you and you can comment on. So that you have all of that in your on the platform. So here we are now going into breakout room discussions. And I know some of you are not feeling well, so maybe not everybody will show up, but most of you will. What we want you to discuss is then the challenge, and you can actually choose any of these challenges, but it seems like the strategic versus the compliance orientation for board seems to be quite in focus here for this team. So maybe that is what you do. Make sure you introduce yourself shortly and then spend some time to discuss why is this a challenge, what is the obstacles, and do you have any board practice that you have found that you can share on how to handle this? So we will now open the rooms and we will bring you all back automatically, and we'll give you about a bit more, 12 minutes to discuss this. So any questions before I open the room? Okay. But it's also important that we all get a chance to reflect here. And if I can get also Peter and Andreas up here on the spotlight. One of the things we wanted to start to ask you is if you can put in the chat anything reflection from this and any board practice you find that actually helps with this focus on compliance versus strategy that you have. And then we just pick a couple of the rooms to share some of the insights back. So maybe we start with the room with Cecilia, Magnus, Meike, Paula, and Andreas. Do you have any reflection?
So Andreas, would you like to comment on our discussions?
Yeah, I mean, we had a discussion around the compliance and strategic trade-off. Obviously, we discussed different ways to address it. Basically realizing that it also depends quite a bit on how compliance is portrayed to the board, right? And how new regulations are introduced to the board. We discussed a bit ESG maturity and how this kind of plays a role in this discussion. Of course, the more mature, the more experienced a company is on ESG, the more likely it is, you know, that it will also respond beyond compliance. So yeah, I mean, this was basically this. We also spent quite a bit of time introducing ourselves, I must say, but
good.
which was good and which is absolutely necessary. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's very good. Thank you for that. So maybe we can hear from Berna, Jacob, Kia, Tom.
Sure. Let me report back. Basically, we discussed that the view, again, similar to Andreas, the view of compliance at the board, like compliance could be an opportunity. So trying to kind of bring compliance not necessarily as a requirement, but also as an opportunity. So kind of like bringing it together in the minds of the board members. So that would be, as opposed to, oh, this is something we have to do, just kind of like, okay, let's turn this into an opportunity kind of mindset. So that kind of, perspective. And also, especially in relation to the example here, because India and, this company has, operations in India, Poland, and the US, we thought perhaps this could be, again, a good combination for compliance and strategy coming together and making sure that could be a good start for this company, that through compliance, we can also move in the direction of strategy, especially because of the operations in these different geographies. Yeah, I hope I made justice to my team members.
Thank you so much, Berna. And now I'm going to start to squeeze in some of the questions to our presenters here. So one of the questions I have for Peter is, you have your value curve where you actually evaluate your companies, and you're trying to get to the value drivers of ESG. So I have two questions on that. How does this benchmark inform the board back so they understand where they are and what they need to do? And do you have examples of good value drivers in your mind from your companies?
Well, going back to the board, I think it's quite the one so far. Unfortunately, it's been a one way that they get the report, but then what next? Maybe trying to find again new target setting or something like that. But really, what the board itself could do and develop them within themselves, I don't. If that was what you meant, I don't see there. I still want to be blunt and quite frank that I think that our board has a lot of different information, but they should put more time into it and work about, because there's a million other topics. We have had a lot of mergers and stuff. So I mean, time spent on this area, we have people, ESG people working, of course, then reporting to the board, but the board, that they would really invest enough time in this. I think they should do more on this part.
Right. Thank you so much. And Andreas, what's your perspective? How do people actually merge the ESG back into the business drivers of the organization? What have you seen there? And how is the board informed about all of these benchmarks that's going on?
I mean, boards are usually presented with quite a bit of ESG related data, right? And I think we don't have a shortage on data there. It's more kind of the understanding of the data. What does it really imply? Because some of the data, admittedly, is quite technical. So connecting, for instance, water or biodiversity data to specific risk categories, right, can be tricky. So this integration of that you're talking about back into the business, I think, is a task that I don't necessarily think it is the board's job to do that. I mean, that's the job of the sustainability function. What the board needs to do, it needs to evaluate it, and it needs to provide oversight for it, and it kind of needs to say, do we address all kind of material risks? Do we address all material opportunities? So I think that's why it is so important that you have a good link between the CSO, the Chief Sustainability Officer, and the board, and that there is a constant exchange between these two bodies.
And do you guys, both of you, see any changes into the strategy process as such? How the board are involved in that in order to actually try to make these integrations happening? Peter, do you want to start?
Yes, I would say that there has been a change, and that really comes that there's been a very extensive strategy process, and starting really again from the shared vision. And as we are talking about bold statements, it means also you need to go quite much deeper and both in depth, but also in breadth, and trying to define in what kind of businesses we are. And we've seen also brilliant business cases that have come up, but due to the ESG part, we have not gone into them. So I would just like to say, one was called a thin paper company, doing extremely thin paper, but the paper, 90% of the paper went into the tobacco industry.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they said, sorry, but we thought we could change that, maybe the technology into something else, but let's say within 10 years, no go. So we said, this is too long. We can't wait. We cannot keep on producing tobacco paper for 10 years.
Thank you so much. And Andreas, do you see any change in the approach to do the strategy development and the board's involvement, and through that also driving the integration?
Yeah, I think boards these days are really more involved in strategy development. This is a little bit what I was referring to with the stewardship model, in this one graph, on this one illustration I showed. So I think there is more interlinkages, but a lot depends also on the corporate governance model that we are talking about, right? I mean, what exactly is the model? What does the model allow you to do? So for instance, in Germany, you have a quite specific two-tiered system. In other countries, you have other systems. But I think that the spirit is that boards and senior management are more working together on this, that there is more collaboration rather than just a sign off by the board on certain predefined strategy indicators, which are then passed on.
Right. Thank you. So let's ask room with Saskia, Jenny, Irvin, Christina, Cecilia. What did you find in the discussion?
Do you want me to go my room, or is there someone else who wants to?
You go ahead, Jenny.
Together? I'll do it. Okay, but yeah, we also introduced ourselves, and then in the beginning we sort of also picked the one with the most votes, and not any of the other dilemmas. And we had 3 sustainability professionals in our group, so we sort of shared our experiences on the topic first, and the sort of the cooperation between management and board and the chief sustainability officers, and the dilemma, and then in the end we had like 3 minutes also to sort of look at the case, and one member sort of put it together on this this global approach on the company that was invented for this this topic. But yeah, if there's something else, but we had very good discussions on the topic, I think.
So since you had a lot of people with a bit more of the sustainability knowledge in your group, did you have a discussion about, are you actually really integrating it into business drivers?
Yeah, I think
I see Irvin raising his hand. Maybe you want to come in.
Yeah,
Lisa,
yeah, if Irvin wants.
Yeah, I think you put the finger in the wound, because one of the question I asked first was, is the fact that you have a chief sustainability officer not already part of the dilemma? Being such an important topic, this should be spearheaded by the CEO, because that's the person that needs to, or the president of the board, let's say, that is the person who has the power to actually enforce things. So it's part of the dilemma, right? And I think the part of the discussion was about the process that the whole thing is. You can't start, so you start somewhere, and it takes some time for the process to evolve, for the knowledge to trickle into the brains of the people. But at the end, it's, I think, also a question of the chair, that the chair has to say, this is my baby, I have to have this. And that's when it becomes strategy, because before that it's compliance, I think.
Right. And I think that's a very interesting topic, because then we can kind of roll back into knowledge and understanding. Are we knowledgeable enough to drive this as part of our business and strategy? And how do we get there? And maybe Andreas, if you like to comment on that, how are the boards informing themselves, and especially the chairs? Are they proactive enough in this topic? And what can all of us do if we are not the chair? How can we help push this agenda?
Well, I think that is a case-by-case kind of evaluation. Some chairs are very active, also here in Denmark, right? I mean, they reach out, and I very much agree with Irvin. I mean, the moment that the chair takes over this agenda, it gets a different dynamic in the boardroom, right? Because then you really have clear ownership and also someone who drives this agenda. But I think probably on average, but I don't have data on it, I must say. This is more my subjective feeling, talking to companies. It is not enough chairs that assume this role yet. So I think we have, as I said during my talk, we have a lot of awareness, but not enough accountability also on the board level, right? And it's always important that even if the entire board discusses that there is someone who's accountable for it, who stands up for sustainability in the boardroom, who you can go towards. Right. How to make that happen? I think this is something that will not be regulated in any way. You know, that the chair needs to take the leading role here. I think this is something which where maybe we can also see those companies that are more proactive on the sustainability agenda being, you know, different from the laggards. So maybe you can even use this as a proxy indicator to judge that. I don't think, you know, there is a recipe to how to make that happen. It depends quite a bit also on the convictions of the chair.
Yeah, I think there is one group that can push it a bit more, and now I'm turning to Peter, and that is the owners. So how are you pushing that your chairs becomes a bit more active, Peter, in owning this?
Well, I would say that as the chair has been very involved in the actual strategy process driving, where ESG is really part of this. I would say that taking a very active role and pushing it down into the companies now. We now have also a new one new CEO, and I think well, the first one-on-one discussions we had with him was that he wanted to ask me, what about how does our ESG roadmap look like, and what are the metrics and what? So I think I felt immediately that the chair has given him some guidance also in when talking to us.
Yeah.
So I'm happy our chair is doing a good job in this and going into completely new industries also than before with this ESG angle.
And that
is sustainability angle. Not totally ESG, but the sustainability angle.
Yeah. And I think that's also a very interesting thing, because both this scope 3 and how it needs to be tackled actually means that a lot of companies.
I would say one more thing, if I must say, I think this focusing, we should not always talk about very broad things. We should at times try to some sort of framing it. What are we talking about? And then go into that. It's too hard if you go too broad.
Yeah, I totally agree, and especially within sustainability, as Andrea said very nicely there in the beginning, it includes so many things that you really need to identify what is the key topics that is part of your materiality for your company. We are so grateful that you have all engaged, and we want to thank you, and I leave it over to Fernanda.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. It's super nice discussions. I always feel very inspired after these sessions. We have some closing information. Not only thanking everyone, but if you can change the slides, Liselott, we would like to give some specific information about the program that is going on. So for those of you that are taking the program, please pay special attention. To those of you who are not doing the program, please consider joining. It's the board's oversight of sustainability for value creation. So we have this platform, Exploring Leaders, where you have access to the content. And we have put here some print screens for the platform, so that's trying to give you some specific pointers. Please go and share your key takeaways from this session today, you know, while it's fresh. Log in, go in, there's a place there for you to share takeaways, and sign up for the next events. You will see that there's already the second, the third, and then the fourth, which is a closed event that you can sign up. Please introduce yourself there on the introduction element, and try to connect with other participants, building a bit of a community around the cohort. Also, please pay special attention that we have in some of the sessions 4, 6, 7, we have the opportunity to assess your own leadership and assess your own board, and also to assess specific board dilemmas. So please go in and share your insights. And then if you can move to the next slide. Also very important, the reflection guide. Please don't remember to go in and get the reflection guide and start filling it up. If you can change the, thank you, Liselott. On the 23rd of January, we have a super exciting event coming up on cyber resilience. Please enter the survey that we have prepared for this event. Sign up for the event. It's going to be awesome. We also have on the 30th of January, another session of this program on the 26th. Also, the last one is on the 1st of March. And on the 27th of February, we start one more program, Board's Oversight for Responsible AI for Value Creation. So please sign up for that. And check out the kind of content we'll have there. And now we are also preparing an event for the 25th of March. It's not open yet, but it's going to be open very soon, on empowering psychological safety and sustainable integration, together with the Hong Kong chapter. Thank you so much, everyone. We have one more slide, Liselott. Ta-da! Here it is. Thank you for today.
So thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you again at the platform or at our coming events. And again, a warm thank you to Peter and Andreas for your very insightful sharings. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.